Hello, good evening, and welcome to Responding to COVID-19 on TTT Talk City 91.1 FM and TTT Live Online on Facebook. I'm Wesley Gibbings. This afternoon at the post-cabinet press conference, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley announced the introduction of a fresh set of measures to regulate essential and non-essential activities in the face of the pandemic. These will take effect at midnight on Sunday. So we are going to begin this evening's program with a further explanation of the Prime Minister's announcement from National Security Minister Stuart Young. Following our interaction with the Minister, we'll also take a look at regional and hemispheric approaches to the COVID-19 challenge. To assist us in doing so, we'll have on the line the Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States, Dr. June Suma, together with CARICOM's Assistant Secretary General for Human and Social Development, Dr. Douglas Slater. At this time, we go to Minister Young. Minister Young, welcome to the program.
Wesley, good evening, viewers to TTT News.
Now, we understand that you're hard pressed for time because these are very busy times for you. But can you explain to us exactly what's going to go in effect from midnight Sunday?
Okay, well, Wesley, let me just start by saying I am not here to provide any further explanation to what the Prime Minister informed the country of earlier today. I think the Prime Minister was very clear and articulate. What is going to happen tomorrow is we are going to present to the country what are captured as essential services and what would be the services that would allow the country over the next period until April 15th to continue at a certain level. And the point I'd like to make to all our listeners and viewers tonight is it is not business as usual. Trinidad and Tobago so far has taken the right decisions, the difficult decisions, and implemented them to protect the population of Trinidad and Tobago in very difficult global times. Anyone who's looking on at what is going on across the world in the most powerful of nations will see how quickly, if you don't put in place certain measures that are going to change your way of life on a daily basis, how quickly their healthcare systems become overwhelmed. And that is what we, the government, have been working over time to prevent. So today, the Prime Minister announced that we're going to be taking it up another level, and there's no state of emergency, there's no lockdown. It is a further stay-at-home measure. And this is what we're going to be implementing. Tomorrow we will come out and we'll provide via another public regulation order what are the essential services and how things are going to run. I know people are anxious. Everybody wants to know what are the essential services. It is going to come out tomorrow. So just add a little bit more patience. But the point, Wesley, and I really appreciate you all giving us the opportunity to drive it home, is we are in very uncertain times globally, but the government is taking the measures that need to be taken for one sole purpose, to protect us, the population of Trinidad and Tobago.
What law or regulation are you relying in order to impose this from Sunday?
As you say, it is going to take in effect from Sunday night. The Attorney General and his team are working with it. I've been in contact with him, the Minister of Health, myself, some of the other ministers have been discussing it, getting a lot of input. At this stage, we're looking at using the same public health ordinance that has been used before to implement the measures that are in place now, right? So that would mean the Minister of Health, and you can understand why. The public health ordinance was designed to protect populations in times exactly like this. There's a pandemic, it's a global pandemic. So what you want to do is you want to shut down your ports, your seaports, your airports, on the basis of medical expert advice that the Minister of Health then comes and says, listen, this is a disease, this is a virus that is sweeping. In order to protect the population, these are the measures. And this is just another step in that. So it will be number 4.
Okay, the police service this afternoon increased the alert from yellow to orange.
Correct.
Is this in response to all of this that's happening now?
Well, in national security, you have different tiers and different levels. And what it really means is, depending on the level that we categorize at, the type of resources that are then put out. So that is what it is. The Commissioner of Police has implemented level alert orange, which means certain things. I know he's put out what it means. It's the use of more resources certain further things apply. It's been taken up a notch, it's been taken up a level. This is what happens in all developed countries all over the world. It's something we've been working on. The Commissioner utilized it once before. You would recall at a period in time when he first came in office, we had taken a decision based on what was going on to increase the level. And what it means is more police force can be deployed, more resources can be deployed. So that is exactly what has happened. And yes, it is for the current measures.
Now, Minister, I mean, it probably should go without saying, but maybe it needs to be said again. You know, with each development, there's a tendency for a certain amount of panic to take place. So this afternoon, after the announcement of this thing for Sunday, there was panic buying, and people are all over, and people are asking.
Well, Wesley, let me say, I saw the videos and the photographs of, for example, Price Smart. I wouldn't call that. Obviously, people become anxious. Obviously, people become concerned. So let me just alleviate those fears. During this stay-at-home period, the groceries will still be open. The pharmacies will still be open. The supply to the groceries and the pharmacies will still be permitted. Our energy sector, essential services there will continue. Our public utilities will continue. So there's no need for those rushes. I understand that people will have some level of anxiety, but it is not going to be shut down, and people will be permitted to leave their home, to go and get their groceries and come back. What we're trying to achieve, and it's the only way you can successfully keep this curve of the spread of COVID-19 down, is we want as many people as possible to just stay in their houses and only leave for those essential services. So the vast majority of people are not going to be captured by essential services. I know you're a media practitioner. Media, of course, will be an essential service. But the vast majority of persons out there will not be captured, but you will be permitted to leave your home, to go to do your banking, and come home. Because next week is when pension checks, etc. will come out. You'll be allowed to go to the pharmacy, get your pharmaceuticals, your drugs that you need, go to the grocery, get what you need, and these types of things will continue. Okay. But the closing of other non-essential things at this age, because what you're really trying to achieve is to stop people from congregating unnecessarily. That is how the virus spreads.
Okay, and during this period of application of this, in one of the other Caribbean countries, in Dutch St. Martin, for example, they're requiring citizens to carry a form of identification. So if they're intercepted by the police and asked to explain, well, what are you about, they will have certain basic information about the person they're dealing with. Is that sort of thing? That
applies, yes. That would be applicable here. I mean, it wouldn't be smart to be caught on the road and not have a form of identification. So all of these questions persons are asking, do I need to be identified or get a pass? At this stage, that is not seen. But you will have to explain to our police service and the support from the Defence Force, what is it that you're on the road for? Well, I'm a media personnel, so I'm going to cover this. Or I am a TNTech worker and we have to go and work on a substation. And we will work out with the various agencies how they are going to identify their employees. And the same thing, if I leave my house to go to the grocery to pick up groceries because I need, and of course we're not asking people to leave every day. I mean, don't go and bulk buy for a month, but have sufficient that you don't have to be exposing yourself and others potentially out in public. So if I'm going to the grocery, officer, here I am, my name is Stuart Young, this is my driver's permit, my ID card, and I'm going to the grocery to conduct my groceries, I'm going to the pharmacy to get some medicine, and we are asking people just come straight back home.
Okay, well, we have to leave it there, Mr. Young. I want to thank you very much for spending this brief time with us.
Thank you very much, Wesley. And Wesley, just to use a couple more minutes of your time, even though I want that after a short. Of course, fuel supplies and stuff will continue. Right? It is what people can understand as essential services, but don't worry, by tomorrow we will produce the list. And I'm also foreseeing, and I can say this now, and I'll discuss it with the Attorney General in a short while, that we will have in there an application process for persons to apply to the Ministry of National Security, to the Minister for designation. Because we accept that the list may need to change, but it is not going to be a morphing of the list. But we accept that there may be some service that was not initially designated, that maybe they can justify why they should be designated, and we'll have a process for that. The same way we have now for exemptions for persons to come in and out of Trinidad, even though our borders are closed.
Okay. Minister of National Security, Stuart Young, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay, you too. All the best. Good. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we'll have Dr. June Soomer, who is Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States, and CARICOM Assistant Secretary General, Dr. Douglas Slater.
The following message is brought to you by the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, at the forefront of energy. Clean all high-touch surfaces and protect yourself against COVID-19 virus. Clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces daily. This includes tables, doorknobs, light switches, countertops, handles, desks, keyboards, toilets, faucets, and sinks. Diluted household bleach solutions, alcohol solutions with at least 70% alcohol, and most common household disinfectants can be used. Do not dry surfaces after wiping them down. Surfaces you are disinfecting need to stay wet for the amount of time listed on the label of the product used. The contact time with disinfectant is what actually kills germs. Do not reuse disinfectant wipes on multiple surfaces. These can transfer germs from the used wipe to other surfaces. Use one wipe for each surface and then throw it out. It's up to you to protect yourself and your loved ones from the COVID-19 virus. The preceding message was brought to you by the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, at the forefront of energy.
When pain feels this tough, choose Panadol Ultra. Fights 5 types of tough pain, including migraine headache. Panadol Ultra. When pain is gone, life takes its place.
This is my father. He tells me stories,
Beautiful blue eyes.
but not always the truth. I know my father is German. I ask him, are we Jewish? All of these people can't have just disappeared. He tells me, you are the last goldfish. I was 14 when I started this search for my family.
I remember him like this, surrounded by women. I remember him.
My father made a decision to live again and never look back, but he left me clues, and they led me here.
The winning numbers in the National Lottery online draws for Thursday, 26th March 2020. At 10:30 a.m. Playway, the number 20 dog, Mega Extreme Ball called. Pick 2 numbers 16 and 36 in that order. Mega Ball called. Pick 4 numbers 8, 9, 7, and 1 in that order. At 1 p.m. Playway, the number 19 horse. Pick 2 numbers 35 and 32 in that order. Pick 4 numbers 4, 7, 2, and 5 in that order. At 4 p.m. Playway, the number 29 Opium Man. Pick 2 numbers 18 and 13 in that order. Mega Ball called. Pick 4 numbers 9, 1, 6, and 2 in that order. At 7 p.m. Playway, the number 28 Redfish. Pick 2 numbers 29 and 17 in that order. Pick 4 numbers 4, 9, 4, and 1 in that order. Cashpot numbers 7, 4, 1, 9, and 5 in any order. Multiplier 2.
Welcome back to Response to COVID-19 on TTT. This evening, we are, in addition to our discussion with the Minister of National Security a short while ago, we're going to take a look at some of the regional and hemispheric approaches to the COVID-19 challenge. And now we have on the line with us the Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States, Dr. June Soomer, and CARICOM's Assistant Secretary General for Human and Social Development, Dr. Douglas Slater. Welcome to the program, Dr. Soomer and Dr. Slater.
Good evening. Thank you.
Dr. Soomer, I think that the ACS performed the Herculean task of bringing together ministers of health and foreign affairs, albeit virtually because of the current circumstances, to discuss a unified ACS-wide approach to COVID-19, to the management of COVID-19. And I saw that there was quite a packed agenda. Can you tell me what were some of the outcomes of the meeting?
Well, we agreed on a number of issues. First of all, we agreed that, yes, we needed to take a regional approach. The national governments have done a very good job so far. But we think that because of the fact that the Greater Caribbean is so connected, remember there we have 25 member states and 10 associate members, that's 35 countries in the region, that we needed to look at a more coordinated approach, especially as some of our members also share land borders. The islands have water borders, but some of my other members have land borders. And so we examined the regional approach to managing COVID. And coming out of that, I think the first thing that we are going to do is to have a technical meeting that is going to be chaired by the ACS, but that is we are getting lead support from Cuba on this. And we are trying to have that next week via video conference so that we can speak to all of the technical people and look at best practices and what are the things we should be doing as we move towards a more regional approach. Right now, I have to tell you that although we have national approaches, and we do have some regional approaches, for example, within CARICOM, and we have some within our Central American countries, the other members of my organization do not belong to these specific groups. And so for the ACS, it is necessary for us to look at that coordinated approach around the Greater Caribbean.
Now, when I looked at the menu of issues to be addressed by the technical committee and by member states, you're dealing with probably close to a dozen thematic areas that would include issues such as testing, care, communication, accessing supplies, food, common immigration and customs approaches. It's a gigantic task. How is the work program arranged in such a way that you're able to make a dent with respect to each one of these thematic areas?
I think that we have a sense of urgency about it. Usually, in a big organization like mine, it's a lot of bureaucratic issues we deal with. But when it comes to disasters, and you see it all the time when it comes to disaster risk reduction, which we help to coordinate around the Greater Caribbean, you can see that countries will move quicker to make sure that things are in place. So, for example, since we have had the meeting, we have had a number of countries sharing with us the various approaches that they take. So we are going to start to collate that to come up with best practices. That's the first thing you must do. You must have best practices throughout the region. And once we do that, then we share it with the members. The communication strategy is the same thing. Getting all of your information from one source. We already have that in some of the countries. And I'm sure that Dr. Slater will speak to the fact that CAPA is the lead agency on this, because you can get all kinds of false information. Yes. And we also have in place various mechanisms where we collaborate and where we can move quickly to give support and supply support if it's needed. So these things are things that are already in place. It's not something new that we're going to come up with. We already have certain mechanisms in place. Of course, they have to be enhanced because we have not faced something like this before. But yes. Even so, some of our countries, for example, Mexico, offered to share with us their H1N1 policy in that regard, so that we are looking at all different policies for us to be able to put these things in place very quickly. Yeah. I know it's a lot, and it's even more because of the fact that we are working remotely, but we are starting to see these things coming to fruition.
Now, I want to come to the specifically to the question of the non-CARICOM member states in a short while, because we're going to be dealing with Mexico, Cuba, and so on. But I want to go to Dr. Slater now. Dr. Slater, well, this is a completely unforeseen event. I don't think that there could have possibly been a lot of planning in advance for this. But one of the features of the Caribbean community is the unevenness of development, the unevenness with respect to access to resources. And now we are seeing that the various CARICOM countries are affected unevenly. And while some might be at phase 1, as the experts have said, some are at phase 2, And in some instances, we are going to be on the edge of a phase 3 full-fledged crisis situation. How is CARICOM approaching this?
Thank you and good evening to all. Well, as was outlined before, the regional approach is a necessity. Unfortunately, we at CARICOM have been monitoring this process and since early January, and we recognize, having had some experiences before with regional outbreaks such as Zika, H1N1, even the Ebola, when there was a threat to global.
Dr. Slater, I think that the video is hung up a bit there, so maybe we can go to Dr. Suma if things are okay with her feed. Yeah, Dr. Slater, but I suppose, Dr. Suma, you have the same sort of issue arising with respect to the anomalies and the unevenness of development. Hence, the contribution of Mexico, and then you have Cuba, which has offered to the world a special level of approach. What about the role of Cuba through all of this?
Oh, we really have to thank Cuba. Cuba is the member in our organization that will step forward with medical attention at all times. And so we have to say thank you to Cuba for their support in that regard. They have a comprehensive program that they are offering to the CARICOM countries and also to the Central American and other Latin American countries. Remember that I have a I deal with diversity all the time. This is not the first time that we have to deal with things at different levels. I have the smallest democracy, which is in Kitts and Nevis, and I have the biggest democracy in our region, which is Mexico to deal with. We also have countries that we have embargoes against, like Cuba. Yet Cuba is stepping forward to help our countries. We are not sure that they will continue to have the resources that they have now to give us the assistance that we need, but they are making an effort to help globally. So we are very proud of that effort, and we want them to continue. And they usually would come to the ACS to say exactly what they are doing in different countries, even if they do have bilateral agreements with these countries. We know at the level of the region what they're willing to offer. And we are always willing to offer technical support to our region.
And what kind of special,
happy for that.
Is Venezuela presenting a special challenge, given its own circumstances?
Well, only in as much as there is an embargo against Venezuela, but Venezuela will always step forward also to assist the countries, as will all my member states. Remember, this is an organization based on South-South cooperation. So our organization will depend, our smaller countries depend on the larger ones with regard to projects, etc. So Venezuela would step forward if it has the resources, but remember there's an embargo also. And so there's a challenge. But Cuba is also helping in Venezuela. Cuba is helping in Nicaragua. Cuba is helping in Jamaica. So Cuba does not allow political issues to determine who they help. They have made that very clear. So to the question of Venezuela, we have not had a challenge. It is a time when the vulnerable are the people that we have to be putting our best foot forward for. All of vulnerable countries as well as vulnerable peoples. And we do have a number of vulnerable countries as well as vulnerable people. And so I think that we are going to make every effort to make sure that we are taken care of as we move along.
Now, in this part of the world, you're probably noticing that there are different levels of state intervention to bring a level of order, to calm and to ensure that the service delivery continues. You would have been on the line when I was having a conversation with National Security Minister from Trinidad and Tobago, where a new level of arrangements will take place, will go into effect from Sunday night, where you're going to have designations of essential and non-essential. What kinds of trends? I mean, there's also a lot of unevenness here. In one or two Caribbean countries, CARICOM countries, have imposed states of emergency. Some have said, well, we're going to impose a certain level of restriction, but not that much. So what is the best guidance you're seeing coming out of the region right now in terms of handling this situation?
Dr. Slater is back, and so he can speak more clearly to the CARICOM issues, although I can also answer that question. But I think on the whole, the phased approach is what all of our countries are taking. So at a level 1, there are certain restrictions. At level 2, there are certain restrictions, etc. In countries where you do not see so many cases, there are fewer restrictions. But we are told that the countries will go through all of the phases. So we expect that all of the restrictions will come. I see it as a time for citizens to take responsibility for their behavior and for protection of their communities. And so, as I heard the National Security Minister speaking during your interview, he indicated that essential services will still be available, supermarkets will still be open, pharmacies will still be open, and so there is not a state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. Remember that the ACS is headquartered in Trinidad and Tobago, so I am hearing all of these things firsthand also. And so the level of panic and that people may have I think it will calm down once people realize that they are able to get what they need for their survival. I think that is the important thing. People are afraid. Some of them think that it's genuine fear, but others it is because they are panicked. But I think people will calm down. I saw it over the last week in Trinidad where things evened out again. So people are not doing the panic buying that you saw before. People are calming down, and once people realize that other services are available, like electricity, water, etc., you will be comfortable in your home. So I think that you will see that all of our countries going through these phases. You can see all of the countries closing borders. Belize indicated to us that they were closing certain borders. Guatemala has closed borders. Panama has closed borders. So this is not something new. The entire region is doing it, and I think they're taking an example from each other. And I think that our countries on the whole have made a big effort to manage this thing properly. So congratulations to them.
Now, one of the points that you made quite emphatically at the end of the extraordinary meeting was the fact that all the institutions, in the same way that all the countries of the ACS region are coming together and they're recognizing the need to come together on a level playing field, essentially, and around the table at the same time. A similar imperative resides with respect to the institutions. So ACS, CARICOM, CELA, ECLAC, and the other sub-regional organizations. How far you see this challenge bringing or emphasizing that point, which it's not a new point, it's a long-standing point. To what extent do you see the challenge bringing people around the table in the way that you spoke about following the meeting?
Well, what happens is that governments call meetings and member states call meetings, but they call those people who are very close to them one time. And they don't call all of the regional institutions at the same time. But all of us have the same or very similar membership. Remember that the 14 CARICOM countries that I represent are also in CARICOM. They are also some of them are in OECS. And all of the countries that I represent are also in ECLAC. So I think that if all of us bring our resources to bear on this, I think that we'll be better able to coordinate it. Now, the ACS is the organization that is the convening organization. So in January, for example, we had an intersecretariat meeting at ACS headquarters where we had CARICOM, SECA, ECLAC, etc. So we had all of these secretaries general speaking to our general work program and how we can bring efficiencies and synergies to our work programs. So if we can do that as agencies, we think that member states should also recognize the value in that and bring us to the table, all of us together. So we bring the other agencies. So if, for example, for my meeting via video conference on Tuesday, we also had CAFA speaking, and we had PAHO involved, and we had CELA involved. So you had an ECLAC and CARICOM. So we had everybody listening into our meeting so that we could hear what the other governments are saying around the Caribbean Sea, and we can know how we move forward together as a team. This is going to take a team effort for us to be able to come back to any kind of normalcy. And not only at this time, but after What do we do after? How do we bring these countries back to some level of development? These are discussions that we should be having already with each other. And I think that is why I made the point so strongly that we needed to have all of the agencies at the table.
Okay, now we're going to have to take a break here, but when I come back, I want us to look at the future, the likelihood of the kind of future we're going to meet post-COVID-19. We've lost Dr. Slater's connection, and I don't think that we'll be able to get him back because he was due to attend a meeting. So Dr. Suma, stay with us, and we'll take a break and be back very soon.
The COVID-19 virus, previously called novel coronavirus, is part of a family of viruses that includes the common cold and other respiratory syndromes. Symptoms include shortness of breath, coughing, fever, or acute diarrhea. In severe cases, symptoms may include pneumonia, SARS, or kidney failure. The COVID-19 virus is treatable, and persons who are affected are reminded to seek immediate attention at your nearest health facility. Take medication as prescribed by a doctor, get plenty of rest, and drink lots of fluids. Protect yourself and your loved ones from COVID-19 by practicing good personal hygiene, such as washing your hands and avoiding close contact with persons who are sick. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Knowledge is power. For students at home following the closure of school to contain the spread of the novel coronavirus, now you can view TTT and stream live on Facebook at TTT Live Online SEA Time, focusing on mathematics and language. All you have to do is tune in Monday to Fridays for mathematics at 9:15 a.m. and language at 1:15 p.m. SEA Time, Mondays to Fridays on TTT and streaming live on Facebook at TTT Live Online is an initiative of the Ministry of Education in conjunction with TTT Limited. The following message is brought to you by the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, at the forefront of energy. Practice good personal hygiene and protect yourself against the COVID-19 virus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water, scrubbing for at least 20 seconds, or in the absence of soap and water, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid touching your face with your hands regularly. This is a lot harder than it sounds and requires conscious effort. However, the average person touches their face 23 times an hour, and about half that time, they're touching their mouth, eyes, and nose, the mucosal surfaces that COVID-19 infects. Cover coughs and sneezes with the inside of your elbow or upper arm. Stay home if you're feeling sick and seek appropriate medical guidance. It's up to you to protect yourself and your loved ones from the COVID-19 virus. The preceding message was brought to you by the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, at the forefront of energy.
SEA students, schools closed, but your learning continues with KFC and JJ and Friends SEA Success Series. Learn math, language arts, creative writing, and comprehension, all based on the Ministry of Education's SEA 2019 to 2023 framework, while in the comfort and safety of your home. Our program covers numbers, measurement, money, geometry, statistics, parts of speech, subject-verb agreement, conjunctions and joining sentences, active and passive voice, classical analysis, sentence analysis, direct and indirect speech, punctuation, spelling, and vocabulary. Create a virtual learning classroom in the safety of your home. Tune in Monday to Friday at 8 a.m. and Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. on TTT, or follow us on Facebook at JJ and Friends for the KFC and JJ and Friends SEA Success Series.
Welcome back to COVID-19, our discussion on response to COVID-19. I'm Wesley Gibbings, and on the line with me now is the Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States, Dr. June Suma. Dr. Suma, before we took the break, I was about to introduce the whole issue of the global economy and what is happening to it at the moment, what is likely to be the outcome of all of this, and the impact of the global economy, the decline in the global economy, slowdown in productivity and so on this part of this world. And of course, even as we speak, there are key economic drivers that are experiencing slowdowns and declines at a rate that they've never experienced before. Tourism, you have industry in the Trinidad and Tobago and those countries involved in the energy sector. The revenue projections are declining very steeply downward. What kind of thinking, of collective thought is going into reflecting on where we are right now, and what are the expectations for the future?
Well, you're asking me to make a prediction without having the data in front of me. But listening to ECLAC last week at our meeting, they're expecting a slowdown. Already, some of the economies were not doing very well within the region, and we're already moving away from the growth that we had expected. But the last set of figures I saw, we expect that there will be a dramatic fall in growth. Maybe Dr. Slater would have some of the more information with regard to what's happening within CARICOM, and I noticed that he's back on the line, so you may want to also...
No, we have been able to reestablish a link with him.
ECLAC is doing the research right now, and will be better able to answer that question in the future. But obviously, from where I sit, because we do work in sustainable tourism, for example, and we notice that with the decline already, that some of the artisans within our projects are already starting to talk about their own ability to do the work that they would do for sustainable tourism. A lot of the countries do that, sustainable tourism, not just cruise tourism. I know we have been very worried about cruise tourism as well as stay-over visitors. But the people who work in the industry are also suffering right now, and we must also try to put something in place in that regard. We also know that trade will be affected. One of the things that's very worrying for me all the time is the issue of food security, because we get a lot of our food through the United States. That's where a lot of the trade would come from. But we have to start looking at how we can engage with our Latin American community to be able to get food from Latin America to come up to our countries. So it's one of the things that we have been talking about for a while. We see it when we have hurricanes affecting places like Miami, that the supplies are not as smooth as normal. So we have to look at new forms of distribution. So I think all of these things we need to be putting in place right now. We don't have to wait for a disaster to happen for us to put these things in place right now to benefit our people. So I'm asking for new modes of thinking about the engagement with Latin America, with Central America, with places like Cuba and the Dominican Republic. Let us look at putting these things in place right now so we are not dependent on one source. And I think that we have the ability and we do have the duty right now to do that.
Now, what kind of discussion did you have on the various forms of social support that's going into the addressing the issue of COVID-19 throughout the ACS member states?
Well, I think that many of the countries didn't speak to the social programs they have put in place, although we have an indication. We do have an indication that countries will be looking at their vulnerable populations with regard to providing assistance for these vulnerable people. Trinidad and Tobago has a comprehensive program for dealing with it. Many of the countries in the region do not have such a comprehensive program. And we are very proud of what Trinidad and Tobago is putting in place, because it serves as an example for the other countries. Now that they see what is happening, people are starting to talk about looking at different funds to make sure that people who don't have will have access. And even today, I saw something coming out of Barbados appealing to citizens in general to contribute to a fund to help households that are disadvantaged. And so I think that there are different things happening. We are starting to collate all of that information around the region. So Wesley, I'll be able to have a better picture, a better regional picture for you very soon.
Okay. Now, I'd hoped to have had Dr. Slater on, but we won't.
He's on.
We won't be able to link back with him because he had to leave for a meeting. We lost the signal and then he had to leave for a meeting. So
he's here. I am seeing him on my screen.
Is he up?
I've been here. Are you hearing me?
Oh, no,
I've been
Dr.
here for quite a while.
I apologize, Dr. Slater. Yes, the folks in Master Control weren't aware of this. I apologize. But so the question I'll go to you immediately with is that it has to do with the whole thing of how the various countries are dealing with the challenges. Now, one of the things is that you find that there's a greater use of online delivery of education. Are you seeing best practice models emerging out of this? And do you see a legacy emerging out of this?
That is to whom?
To Dr. Slater.
Oh, okay. Well, certainly we have been forced or pushed into a situation where we have to accommodate the challenges. And one of them is communicating online. And we know many of our academic institutions have been going that way, but this had to be accelerated. I know one of our regional institutions, the CXC, has expressed some additional challenges as they come up near to the examination time. So too has the UWI. So I will say that it probably has forced us to ramp up where we were lagging. And I think over the past few days, where several of our offices had to be working virtually like this, it was an opportunity to demonstrate that it can work, and it has been working by and large well.
How close have you been to the discussion on the fate of CSEC and CAPE? I know that there's a dialogue between the member governments and CXC right now with respect to the scheduling of those examinations. Have you been able to follow that?
Yes, well, I am aware that there are conversations going on. What I cannot say exactly what has been decided yet, but up to just yesterday, I know Prime Minister Gonzalez had expressed that those were some considerations going on. The executive director of CXC, as I said, had stated that they were in that process. But as you realize, things are happening very rapidly, and I am not too sure whether they have been able to keep up with the pace of which shutdowns of schools and institutions has been going. We heard earlier that these measures are not homogeneous across member states. They're going in phases, with some countries moving faster than others, and that in itself is an additional challenge. But I'm certain that we, because of our regional approach, as has been discussed, we will come up with a solution.
Okay. Dr. Slater, I put this question to Dr. Sumer earlier, but have you been looking at the various member states and their approach to social support systems? And what learnings have there been for the region throughout this phase so far? We're still essentially in early days yet, but there are some countries, Trinidad and Tobago has gone considerably in depth. I know that Barbados, there's a discussion. Jamaica announced some new initiatives with respect to support for people who have lost jobs and for businesses that would have had gone into a new phase of their cycle.
I think this is a general process in the region. As you know, the CARICOM Secretariat, one of our main functions is to coordinate the response of our member states. And we have had these discussions at several levels, including at heads. We had a meeting, I think on the 15th or 17th of Ministers of Finance, and these issues were raised. And you have named some of the member states that have already been publishing some of their measures. I know too, as I said, that just last night, today we received some of those measures from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I know some of the other OECS states and Barbados. Most of the states are getting there because they are well seized with the implications of all this, of the challenge we have. And they recognize, because we have been discussing these issues, and they are moving up to the plate, stepping up to the plate in an interest of making it as soft, the landing as softly as possible for our citizens, especially the most vulnerable.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Slater. I apologize once again for the technical mishap. I truly apologize. Hopefully we can have you on again on another occasion. I want to thank Dr. June Sumer, Secretary General of the ACS. And I want to thank all of you for staying with us this evening. See you again soon. Please be safe.